So with the Perry tournament tomorrow, and with lots of high hopes and some doubts on the rise, with most of us being novices and this being our first real tournament outside of novice tournaments, there's a lot of pressure to do well, and I feel like a lot of us are losing hope. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, one thing came to mind, and that was not to be satisfied. And what I mean by that is it's so easy just to let this pass you by, especially it being your first tournament as not a novice tournament. You have all the excuses in the world just to go out there and do whatever. But I challenge you, and this is what I truly think you can do, is be more than just satisfied with your results. In fact, I say don't let yourself be satisfied. There's so many things that you can do in life where you just do exactly what people require of you. But when you decide to go above what you are expected to do, that's what people see. That's where people notice you above everyone else. So it doesn't matter whether you place or win, it's about what you do to not let yourself be satisfied and to be able to come out better than where you started. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I have 5 points to represent that, and a story. The first point, like any good story, is a start. The reason I wanted to start with the start, besides obvious reasons, is because the first step is often the hardest. A lot of people are always afraid of the gunshot at the beginning of the race, even sometimes more than the race itself. But you need to take that first step with gusto. You need to take that first step with enthusiasm more than your competition. Because as I said, it's not just about what you do tomorrow speaking. It's about who you are and what you plan to be. And that start could determine everything. Now let me start my story. It starts with just steps. Step, 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 step. This was me on my first day of cross country back in 8th grade. I was in the middle of the bog, running with a group of people. I could see the sweat going down their faces, but the exhaustion just wasn't the same. I decided to run with a group that was clearly above my level. And after the first 5 minutes, it clearly showed off because I was not able to keep up. This ended up pushing me back. I put excuses in my head saying that this was not going to be for me. Running just wasn't my thing. And I put that in my mind. It led me to stop that day. I stopped and gave up right at the start. I was left alone inside the middle of the woods, wondering what should I do, what would people think when I walked back to the pavilion where we had just met earlier. I mean, I walked up there that morning, and I saw like 200 people, and I looked over to my friend and I was like, these people all chose to be here? These people chose to run? And that was crazy, and I was one of the people that chose to run somehow, and now I'm here giving up in the middle of the woods. That was my mindset on my first run during 8th grade. But I didn't let myself be satisfied with just that run. Despite the doubts that I was not going to run, despite the doubts that I was going to be the worst on the team, even if I was, I decided that day that I was going to run. That I was going to push harder than what I had started with. And I wasn't going to be satisfied. I was not going to let myself be satisfied. That 8th grade year kind of passed me by a little faster than I expected it would. In fact, each moment became something new. And each moment, I decided to focus on the little things. My next point. Take time to breathe. Despite it being something that we do every day, it's something that we often forget to do in our everyday lives. Not just breathing in and out, not just feeling your heart pump, but looking around. Look at where you're at now. Take time to reflect on where you started and where you are now. At the end of my 8th grade year, I ran my first half marathon. I ran it at a slow pace, granted, but it was still a huge monumental thing for me. And it was my first step into a bigger world that it wasn't just about running anymore. It wasn't just about taking another step. It was about every day. Every single day, you run. Whether you exercise or not, you run. And you have to choose to run. Because it's about the decisions you make every single day. It's about those little things that add up. The little things are what I want to talk about. You need to focus. And focusing starts with you. Every time that you decide to look farther than what you start with, you decide to focus on the small things. The small things that add up. The practices every day. The time that you spend practicing your speech, memorizing, this all adds up. And it's the small things that are going to make a true difference. Carol Burnett said, "There's one thing that changed my life, one letter, and that letter was I." You are the one that's going to be able to make a difference in your speech career and your life. You are the one that's going to make that difference. And as cliche as it sounds, you need to focus on the small things, because the focus is what determines your reality. I want to get into my next point, which is, I already talked about this, but I want you to run. Not just exercise. I want you to go farther than just stopping. In fact, a quote by Confucius says, "It doesn't matter how slow you go, just don't stop." At the starting line, I stopped, but I kept going. And now I refuse to stop. Tell yourself to refuse to stop every single time that you go up and you decide to speak. And in fact, that's my last point. Speak. Not just talking to people, not just because you're performing tomorrow at Perry, but take time in your everyday to speak. Not just talk, but to show someone more than just what you're trying to say, but you mean to say it. You're more than just the everyday, because every day is a new chance to make tomorrow. Don't bet on tomorrow to be your opportunity. Focus on today. Be who you mean to be right now. And just like I said, don't just run by moving, but tomorrow at Perry, don't just speak by talking.